Hi, welcome to BBB. It sounds a little bit different today because I'm not using my normal dialogue mic, but today's session is a little more complicated than usual and I want to be able to show you everything without getting tangled up in wires. So excuse the drop in dialogue quality. We're going to be doing the bass today for Diesel's Colour Me Red, and rather than plug into the pod or use a virtual bass amp, we're going to use a real amp in the studio. I've got a little practice amp, I've got some nice pedals, I'm going to get the DI signal too, and I'm going to try and really rock it up and get some life into the performance. So let's have a little look at what we've got. Okay, so the first thing we have is a rather nice Gibson 1974 Les Paul Triumph bass. It's got a lovely thick sound and it's good fun to play. That's going into a standard set of pedals. We've got our Boss Chromatic Tuner feeding an UBS compressor. That's then going into a passive DI box. Now the output from the DI box is feeding this Tech 21 Sansamp bass preamp, I guess it is, which basically I'm using as a distortion box. The other side of the DI box is actually leading out to my interface to give me an unamped sound, but I'll get to that in a minute. Now out of the Sansamp, we're going to my trusty Marshall practice amp. It's nothing flash, it's not very loud, and it's not valve. But it sounds pretty good and it's got a nice honky quality that I think is going to suit this song down to the ground. I'm miking it up with some pretty ordinary mics like you might have at home. On the front I've got an SM57 right up against it. On the back, rather unusually, I have an SM58. Now although there isn't an open back to this amp, there is a little port to let heat out, and I find if you mic this up you can get some good low subtones out of even quite a small amp. This works great with electric guitar as well. Now obviously, as the microphones are facing each other, you will need to reverse the polarity of one of them, although you might find the combination sounds quite good as long as you have a DI signal to make up for the lack of bass this is likely to bring. I've made a triangle behind the amp using some great big duvets on clothes stands. That's because that corner of the room tends to have a bit of a ring, and that can often happen in corners, even non-reflective corners like these. And at the front I've put part of my disassembled reflection filter just to keep the worst of the room noise out of the mic. Let's have a look at the computer. Okay, so here's my trusty RME interface. Into the first channel I've got my SM57. Into my second channel I've got the SM58 on the back of the amp. Now the DI box feeds out with a mic lead, so I've had to find something else to plug that in. And luckily I'm a beta tester for Focusrite, and I've been able to borrow this rather nice 8 preamp box called an Octopre, and I've fed the DI into that. Now I figure if you've got more than one mic on a single source, it's always a good idea to use the same interface for them to avoid any kind of synchrony issues. And seeing as the DI input is likely to need adjusting in time for phase reasons, then that will be quite safe on a second input. If we have a look at the screen, I hope you can see that okay. I've got 3 channels set up in purple. I've made sure that the preamp gains are pretty equal, and I'm getting a moderate signal that's going nowhere near the top. One of the main problems recording in the same room as the computer is that even with your headphones on, it's going to be very difficult to differentiate between the sound coming out of the amplifier and the sound coming through the computer. And there may even be phase issues between what's live in the room and what's coming through the system. So there always is an element of bluff when you're recording like this. I won't really know what it sounds like until I've finished recording, I've turned the amp off, and I can turn the studio speakers back on and analyse how it's turned out. So it's a good idea to make a few test recordings before you commit to the final takes. I've already done that, and I've got a really nice sound going. I've actually left the 2 microphones on the amp out of phase with each other, and they've made a really nice bright tone, and I'm going to have to rely on the DI signal for all the subs. So let's get on with a few takes. Okay, so I've got my headphones on, the amp's pretty loud, so let's give it a go now.
down. Give it up, let me in, don't make me beg. I burn so bright, your color me red. Never went to school cause my mama was cold. She worked me in the fields until the moon was whole. Drunk up, bashed up, she gave me no rest. But damn you, child, I'll color you red. Yeah, I can't stand the taste, and everything's the same, and you just turn away. And I see the writing on the wall, and no one sees me fall, and you just think I'm born of despair.
Okay, so I feel like I'm getting the hang of the song now. So I'm going to turn the camera off so I can really concentrate on the song. The song is king. And I'll see you at the end. Okay, so I couldn't decide whether to play the song with my fingers or with a plectrum, and I couldn't decide whether to play the guitar riff along with Diesel or just to play the root notes as in the demo. They all sounded really good, and while I was in the mood and full of energy, I did everything in every context, so I've got a lot of takes to go through. I'm going to wait till I'm a bit fresher and I'm going to do that. I'm not going to show you how to edit the tracks together or do any phase alignment. I think we've done enough of that in these videos. Needless to say, I'm going to put all that together, edit it if it needs it, and I'll share the results with you soon. See you in the next video.